Everyone assumes meat comes from animals. That assumption worked until biology became programmable. This episode is about what happens after that. Today we're talking about meat, because one shift in how animal biology is understood has begun to separate protein production from animal farming itself. That shift isn't about taste or ethics first. It's about control, repeatability, and who carries biological risk. Once you see that change, you can't unsee it. For decades, genomics has been framed almost entirely through the lens of medicine, disease, diagnostics, human health. But some of the most commercially significant genomic breakthroughs today aren't happening in hospitals or clinical labs. They're happening inside core economic systems: food, materials, logistics, manufacturing. Hidden Genomics is a series about where genomics is already creating value, changing cost curves, reducing biological risk, and turning living systems into predictable infrastructure. Each episode starts with something familiar, then shows how biology is being read, directed, and scaled in ways that matter to markets. You bite into a burger. It's hot, juicy, that familiar mix of fat, salt, and char. We know this story. Meat comes from animals. Animals are raised on farms. We buy meat at grocery stores. That assumption feels settled, even if we don't like to think too hard about what it involves. But pause for a moment. What if this burger didn't come from a cow that was born, raised, and slaughtered? What if it came from a small sample of animal cells, grown into meat without raising the rest of the animal at all? Same muscle tissue, same fat, same proteins your body recognizes instantly. If meat is defined by the cells it's made of, not the process used to obtain them, what are we actually eating? And what happens when food no longer needs a farm as its starting point? For most of human history, meat production followed one unavoidable rule. To get muscle, you had to raise the entire animal. That muscle came bundled with bones, organs, heat, metabolism, and time. This system worked when scale was limited and local. It worked when populations were smaller and demand was predictable. Modern meat production operates under very different conditions. Animals grow at biological speed. Cattle convert less than 15% of the calories they eat into edible meat. The rest goes to bones, organs, body heat, and basic survival. Livestock requires enormous inputs. Today, animal agriculture uses over 75% of global agricultural land, while providing less than 20% of the world's calories. As systems scale up, density increases. So does disease risk. When disease spreads, losses aren't incremental. Entire herds can be wiped out at once, triggering sudden price spikes and supply shocks. This isn't a failure of farming, it's a mismatch between biological systems and industrial demand. We are asking a centuries-old biological process to behave like modern manufacturing. That tension led to a different question. Instead of asking how to raise animals more efficiently, scientists asked, what if we stopped growing the parts we don't eat? This shift only becomes possible once biology becomes readable. Because once you can read biology, you can stop guessing. That's where genomics enters the picture. Cultivated meat doesn't begin with an animal raised to slaughter weight. It begins with a biopsy. A thin needle, a small sample of muscle tissue. The animal lives. From that tiny sample, scientists isolate stem cells. One animal can seed years of production. Genomics verifies those cells behave consistently. Batch after batch, it's biological quality control. And every time a technology becomes programmable and cheap, incumbents underestimate it, until the cost curve makes it undeniable. Once cell behavior is understood, production changes. Instead of fields and barns, cultivated meat uses bioreactors. A bioreactor is a controlled vessel designed to keep cells alive and growing. The closest analogy is brewing. Cells are kept warm, they're fed nutrients. They multiply and do what they naturally do. Inside a bioreactor, animal cells receive water, amino acids, sugars, vitamins, and minerals. Temperature, oxygen, and timing are tightly controlled. The cells grow, they differentiate into muscle and fat. They form tissue. Bioreactors have been used for decades to produce nearly all the world's insulin, along with many vaccines and food enzymes. Applying this system to meat removes seasonality. It allows production closer to population centers. It eliminates waste from unused animal parts. This is biology operating under industrial precision. One of the earliest proof points arrived in 2013. A company called Mosa Meat unveiled the world's first cultivated beef burger. The burger became famous for its cost. Over $300,000 for a single patty. That wasn't a business model. It was a physics experiment. Since then, costs have fallen by orders of magnitude. Today, companies report production costs in the tens of dollars per pound, with growth media still the largest expense. Mosa Meat focuses on cultivated beef, growing muscle and fat together, and on reducing the cost of growth media. They are not yet producing at mass scale. What they demonstrated was feasibility. The remaining challenge is manufacturing efficiency. That's where capital, engineering, and genomics converge. When manufacturing efficiency becomes the bottleneck, this stops being a biology story. It becomes a repricing story, because when risk changes, valuations change. Global meat is a $1.4 trillion system built on land, water, a feed volatility, methane, antibiotics, and facilities that process thousands of animals per hour. It runs on weather cooperating, on disease staying contained, on razor-thin margins moving enormous biological mass. That's the legacy stack. Now compare that to controlled bioprocess production. Similar to brewing beer or manufacturing insulin. No herds, no manure lagoons, no slaughter lines. Same protein, different risk architecture. Protein is shifting from a commodity exposed to weather to an asset optimized for yield. Markets price predictability. Solar scaled when cost curves crossed parity. Cloud computing scaled when owning servers stopped making financial sense. Those were repricing events. We are still in the early innings. Most cultivated producers operate around $15 to $30 per kilogram. True viability likely requires something closer to $5. And cost curves in biology have a history of collapsing faster than expected. Traditional livestock trades at roughly 6 to 8 times EBITDA, cyclical and weather-bound. Advanced biotech manufacturing can trade in the teens to 20 times. Controlled and yield-driven. Same protein. Different multiple. Costs fall through scale, cheaper growth media, nutrients like amino acids and sugars that cells consume, larger facilities, automation, and hybrid products that hit price points faster. Adoption won't start with ideology. It starts with margin and supply stability. And when biological cost curves break, and they historically break, not drift, adoption doesn't creep. It flips. That's asymmetric payoff. When the economics flip, capital reallocates fast. Different risk profile, different multiples. That's the shift. Cultivated meat is often grouped with GMOs. The two are different. GMOs involve changing genetic code. Cultivated meat grows existing animal cells. No foreign DNA is required for the meat itself. There are real trade-offs. Energy use matters. Scaling takes time. Regulation is complex. This approach will not replace animal agriculture, but it does reduce pressure on land, water, antibiotics, and fragile supply chains. This is about resilience and optionality. The future of meat is mixed. Animal farming continues. Cultivated meat fills specific roles. Fermentation-based proteins support others. Hybrid products become common. Animal meat becomes more premium and less industrial. A useful mental model. Farming grows whole organisms. Manufacturing grows components. Food is beginning to move along that spectrum. Genomics enables that shift by making biological systems understandable, repeatable, and scalable. This story isn't really about burgers. It's about how biology becomes infrastructure. If you care about where genomics is actually creating value next, follow Hidden Genomics here on YouTube. Like, share, and subscribe for more episodes exploring how biology reshapes markets. For references and additional reading, visit our Genomics Media Substack at genomicsmedia.substack.com. Once you see where genomics is hiding in plain sight, you can't unsee it.